this thing. Where I am, in Europe, in their infinite compassion, they wish us not to damage our hearing, which is fair enough. But that means what they do is they limit these and all other kind of dongles to not give out what you actually want if you want to listen to proper music in the proper way with decent, half-decent headphones. So, what do? You could spend a fortune and get one of those £100, £200 dongles or portable DACs or whatever, and ultimately you're buying an overpriced version of one of these with a pretty similar thing, but just it has the capability and is allowed to run louder. So for us, we're kind of trapped in the situation. Do we spend a fortune on a more expensive gear or not? And I don't think you need to necessarily do that. I think that what you need to do is look elsewhere. Now, there's a lot of very expensive dongles that you can get that are audiophile grade or whatever. But as we all know, these things actually have very nice frequency responses, nice and flat, very capable devices. It's just power that's letting them down and some of the implementation of the software. So, yeah, by all means go and spend that money, but I don't have it. And I actually use my gear, unlike most of the people on YouTube or whatever, where they test something for a couple of days. They're like, oh wow, this is amazing, look at the graphs, it's fabulous. And they don't actually have to live with it for any length of time. I do. I'm not in their very fortunate position. So, I found one of these, which is a Creative Sound Blaster 4 Play or something. It's and it's basically just one of these with a couple of buttons, but one of the buttons changes its mode from its standard mode, which is your kind of EU compliant, not making a lot of noise mode, to a mode that allows you to have complete control of it, like you do with USB Audio Player Pro, all that kind of stuff. But it comes directly built in, so you don't need to bother with all that stuff. Just now, with a voucher on Amazon, it's 20 quid, which is not bad, but crucially, and I believe, and I've not tested all of them, haven't had access to all the different hundreds of thousands of ones, but like I say, I think that does have its drawbacks in terms of where people don't actually, those people that are testing all those very fancy, expensive ones and telling you all that you need to buy them, they're not having to live with them. And that means that they're not finding out that this has still got copper wire between this section and this section. If it's a 150 quid helm or whatever, it's going to fail, and actually it being made in low volumes is not actually necessarily an advantage that they would have you believe in lots of ways. As we all know, if you've ever bought a mainstream car and it's pretty damn reliable, but then you make with a really expensive, really boutiquey little car, breaks down every 5 minutes. You're like, well, that's great, it's very fancy, but does it actually work? And I live in the real world. And when it comes to these, the chips that are used in them, they are doing what they need to do. They're not, doesn't need to be a high-end, high voltage, all that, it doesn't have to be all that sophisticated. It just has to have very basic components that are available off the shelf to all these manufacturers very cheaply, which is why you have everybody diving out to make all these little linear headphone things. I mean, it is all the issue that you ever have with them is that the Bluetooth is kind of rubbish, and that it's the EQ that's been chosen to be most popular that's making them sound awful. And as people who've got the Apple ones will tell you, actually that can be done quite well, and you can get quite decent ones on the mainstream. But I tell you something, it doesn't cost Apple 300 quid to make one of those things, because these chips are the same chips that they put in one of these for 7 quid, and they just chuck a battery in it, and they put a Bluetooth receiver, both of which cost a tiny amount of money. Okay, bundle it very well, it's nicely designed, the packaging's very nice and it's pretty, and you get to go down into their fancy shops and feel special and like you're a special person, and they pat you on the back and tell you you're wonderful as they rip you off and take all your money and become one of the most profitable businesses on the planet. But yeah, there are other ways of going about it if you don't necessarily want to give all your money away to Apple. So this works superbly. It is the law of diminishing returns, I think, starts here. Unfortunately, I would like it to start here, as everybody else seems to in the reviewers in America or out with in the Far East or in Singapore or whatever, where they don't have the particular rules. This is probably the law of diminishing returns starts here. But I think in Europe, it's kind of here because it has that functionality. And I will have a test. Now, what test if you're going to listen to music? You test for loudness. It's got to be Pantera. Not that I'm going to play any of it, obviously, to you, but it's going to be playing through my system. Obviously, I don't listen to anything on YouTube normally, but just for demonstration purposes, bit of Pantera, it has to be. You want loud? What better definition of loudness is there? So, this is it in its normal, friendly European mode. Doesn't going to damage your hearing, and thankfully it defaults to this, because to be perfectly honest, the used right, lots of people do damage their hearing if they don't know what they're doing. So, absolutely, this is max volume, European mode, absolutely fab. This is the way it comes out as packages, and I actually kind of agree with them. This is probably what they should do. So, what we're going to do, we're going to take this and hold this button, and it's going to flash, and hopefully it should change over and light up blue. And obviously once you plug into the same device, it's going to remember this every time, because they secretly know what they've done here. They're not fools. And all of a sudden, so you go from previously when music was playing, where it was like this, and it looks fine, but you can see these little green lights don't light up. However, now, when I play, and I put the volume up to full, we've discovered that I haven't reset it properly. Right, back in a sec. You can't see it. Well, this is normal mode, obviously, still, and it's coming up with not being lit up. So let's try this again. Oh yes, I made this mistake. So there we go. Proper full playing mode, unleashed. You can see that it's absolutely overloading. The little red lights lighting up red to tell you that you need to turn it down a little bit, because the signal's so strong, and you want a strong signal because I'm sending it out and through a copper cable, and the stronger the signal, the better. So there we go, not clipping anymore, it won't be distorting. And then I'll turn it back to EU mode. It's probably going to play the music for a second. It's going to get grumpy. Yeah, a blast of Pantera by accident. Don't want to play Audio Player Pro because that would be cheating. And I'm playing again, and volume is maxed out, and nada. Got to turn it back up again to get my light into green, into strong signal. So there you go. Cheap little dongle, nice little fancy button. Doesn't cost you much because it's meant to be for a different market. You are the problem, Audiophiles. You're willing to spend, they know you're willing to spend over the ends for it. They also know that you're a very small market, so all the R&D has to be met by a small number of people. So the solution, go to a market that's not such a small market, like gamers, or in this instance, people who use Teams, and you're going to get the same piece of kit, or a similar piece of kit, similar capabilities, for a fraction of the price. Don't let them fool you. Don't let the little boutique people fool you. Don't get ripped off. And if this cable breaks, I will not be heartbroken. Whereas if if I'd spent 100 quid, 150 quid, which is what my current phone that I'm filming this cost, then I would be heartbroken if the inevitable happens and the cable breaks, or a bit of grot gets in here, or whatever, even I spill water on it or something because I'm using it in the real world, then I'm best off with this. It works great, sounds great. It, like I say, it is not probably the greatest or finest piece of kit, but I contend that that extra 1% isn't worth paying 10 times the amount. What do you think? You got 10 times the amount of money? Then fair enough. Good luck to you. Well done. Pat yourself on the back. I don't. And for lots of other people, something like this will work perfectly fine. Don't let the people fool you into spending too much money. They don't actually have to live with this stuff. They don't have to live with their 150 quid dongle DAG, because they're using their DAGs anyway. Anyway, all the best. Nice and cheap. Dinna fess yourself. Toodaloo. Addendum. And just because we need beauty as well as volume, I will show you, this is what I'm listening to now, and it's kicking out 24-bit 96, which is, I believe, the limitation of Android. So, perfectly fine. You can actually get, I think, 192 if you're listening through a PC, but I suspect the difference will not be noticeable. And like I say, the expense and all that, and the practicality is not going to be there. You've got your ordinary smartphone, and it just, okay, this is a fancier old one that I had. Its battery lasts about 3.5 seconds, so it's plugged in and on a wireless charger, but it works fine. But my cheap 100 quid smartphone kicks out exactly the same 24-bit 96 into my DAC, into my preamp, and out into my speakers. It's all good. Sorted.